Hi, I'm Jim Knotts, President and CEO of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund. Welcome to today's virtual reading of the names. 2022 marks the 40th anniversary of the dedication of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C. As part of our commemoration, we'll host an in-person reading of the names at the wall from November 7th through 10th, 2022, when all 58,281 names on the wall will be read aloud. In the lead up to that event, we'll be reading names each day online while sharing the photos of these heroes. For our daily virtual reading, the names of the service members will be read by month and day of death between the years 1956 and 1975 in alphabetical order for the given day. We apologize in advance for any mispronunciations. Know that our readers are doing their best to honor these service members. We hope you'll listen and watch each day and share with others as we remember and honor those who gave their lives during the Vietnam War.
Freddie L. Amick, John William Anders, Lawrence Theodore Andrews, James Michael Aries, Franklin Delano Adjule, Don Carter Baker, Bobby Lee Barker, Carl Eugene Barnett, Alan Macy Beals, Charles Fred Bevetto, John Hilton Blaylock, Leroy Irvin Blankenship, Donald Hugh Bloomer, Edward Allen Boardman, Jerry Keith Bobbitt, William Ross Bond, James Earl Boyer, Thomas Ray Bowen, Patrick John Brems, David Alden Brenner, Cleveland Floyd Bridgman, James Martin Brinkman III, Ernest Caesar Brown, David Charles Brugman, Roger Lee Bruno, Hector Warren Bryan, Donald Wayne Burnside, Gerald Carl Capel, Paul Richard Capuano, David Charles Cardinal, James Cook Carland, Billy Pat Carlisle, Frank Jerome Carroll, Benjamin V. Childress Jr., Jesse J. Coffey, Kenneth Lee Christ, Leland Stephen Crowley Jr., James Joseph Curry, William Stanley Cutting, Kenneth James Danzler, Larry Ewell Darden, James Dean Davis, Alejandro de Jesus Munoz, William Arthur Debates, Richard M. Delarina, Leslie Allen Devers Jr., Carmelo Diaz Roman, Terry Wayne Dickerhoff, Carter Wayne Dowd, David George Dragosovac, Otto James Draken, Gary Lee Duggan, Zlatko M. Bacon, Leroy James Bashing, Gary Lee Fawcett, Renee Fernandez, Craig Piper Fielding, George Arthur Fisher, Robert Gene Floyd, Daniel Leopold Flynn, Alvin Leon Gay, Richard Lawrence Giambron, Larry Gilbert, Barry Lee Golden,
Raimundo Gomez, Robert Allen Govan, Philip Grant, William Ronald Grayson, Joe Worth Green, James Luther Hall, Frank Edward Hand III, John King Hargrave, Gary Blewett Harris, Donald James Habel, Frank Everly Headley IV, Cyric Herbert Jr., Don Ray Highmark, Arthur Hernandez, James Arthur Highsmith, Robert Allen Hill, Kenneth Ray Hodge, Roland Hayes Howell, John Anthony Jellish, William Theodore Johnson, Dennis Van Johnson, Cully Johnson, Jr., Cecil Lee Jones, George Henry Jordanius, William Peter Castendick, David Joseph Kern, Floyd Dale Kettles, Raymond Omer Kincannon, J. William King, William Frederick Coleridge, Donald Edward Coolidge, Russell Thomas LaFave, Robert Harrison Lane, Jr., David Henry Lassen, Gerard Andre Levine, Delmar Leon Lawrence, Chester Lloyd Lee, Robert Morgan Liddell, Clarence Logan, Ronald James Long, Edward Lacuna Lew, Jr., Robert Allen Lula, Lloyd Bernie Magby, Nathan James Mann, Daniel Victor Manzaro, Ezra Bud Martyr, Brian John Matheson, Roger James McHenry, Jr., Stuart Murray McClellan, James M. McMillan, Jr., Michael Edgar McPeters, Robert Edwin Mincer, Jr., Alan Stanley McCann, James Calvin Miller, Ronnie Mills, Eldon Wayne Moore, Michael Joseph Morehouse, James Henry Morgan, Jesse Don Morris, Jr., William Shelton Mortaby, Wiley Barry Moss, Larry Eugene Mullins, Michael Terrence Mulvaney, Thomas Joseph Murphy,
George Lee Myers, Richard Dominic Nicolini, Len Everett Nixon, Mortimer Lenane O'Connor, Jerry Wayne Osborne, James Douglas Owens, Michael Richard Patterson, George Francis Patterson, John Dale Peterson, Sidney E. Plattenberger, Gerald Ray Pollard, Jr., Victor Eugene Press, James Edward Presley, Michael Joseph Purcell, Gerald Wayne Purdon, Raymond Francis Quinn, Melvin Darrell Quinn, Jose Luis Quinones, Rex Earl Rader, Donald Ray O. Ragsdale, Roger William Ray, Richard Paul Rand, Terry Ward Ratcliffe, Curtis Allen Rhodes, John Owen Rhodes, Ray Wesley Rodas, Darwin Bruce Ridenhour, Confessor Rivera Martez, Robert Paul Ruminski, Billy Joe Schaefer, Terry Lee Schell, Klaus Dieter Schleiben, David Jerome Schmidt, Vinter Ciaretti, Rodolfo Carrillo Serrano, Peter William Shagavac, Jr., Wayne Carl Simmons, Richard Charles Simmons, Anthony Simoes, John Lee Smith, Alton Smith, Ricardo Hinojosa Soto, Philip Clark Stafford, Robert William Stanley, Harry Sherman Stayer, Philip John Stemper, William F. Stevens, Jr., Richard James Stewart, Benny Howard Strait, Brent Anthony Street, Robert Cecil Strickland, Lawrence Edwin Sutton, Milton Truman Swain, Michael George Taylor, John Francis Taylor, David F. Taylor III, James Joseph Tedesco, James Lee Tewksbury, Richard Allen Thursby, Angelo Torres, George Michael Underdown, Manuel Barola Vale, Blythe Noel Vandeventer, Donald Edward Vandershans,
Robert Edward Van Dusen, William Penn Wall III, Casey Owen Waller, Richard Meade Waterbury, Samuel Lee Watt, James Leroy Weir, David Welch, Clifton P. Wheelhouse, Jr., Stephen James Williams, David Richard Williams, Thomas Edward Wilson, Ronald Eugene Wilson, Peter Lewis Winter, John P. Wobble, Donald Frank Wood, James Frederick Worth, Stephen Charles Ray, Edward Orlando Winder, Dale Arnold Yateman, John Edward Young, George W. Youngerman, Jr., Alvin George Yoxsimer,